recording now. All right. So, so welcome everybody to our second lecture. Yeah, it's been super active, like crazy, super active with lots of diving, lots of pool sessions. We had a pool session on Friday, a private pool session on Friday. We had the accelerated pool session on Sunday. We had Boy Scouts pool session on Saturday. We had diving on Thursday. So yeah, it's been very, very busy, but lots of fun at the same time. I have some of the leaders with me. Oh yeah, and some people like Kim got to have two accelerated pool sessions. Andrea came to a accelerated session on Friday. So it's been really busy and I would say a lot of fun. So far so good. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and share my screen with the PowerPoint presentation. And then I'm going to stop sharing in a moment because I want to check to see who's going to be where and when. We do have a new student with us. So Garrett is new and one of our Davids is going to have to postpone. And so, you know, these kinds of things happen. So welcome to Garrett, who's brand new. Well, can tell us a little bit about yourself, Garrett, if you don't mind.
Hey, I'm Garrett Bailey. I'm from Bainbridge, and I've been interested in scuba diving for a while. Now that I got my own job, my own place, I can finally afford it and have the time to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mentioned to you, which I think we just had our first contact today, right? and I mentioned to you that I do have several students from Bainbridge. Several students have signed up from Bainbridge, and so and other places in South Georgia. So welcome. I'm glad you're here, and you'll get to watch the recording of the first lecture and learn about who everybody else is here too, okay? So let me go ahead and start sharing the screen. And give me a moment as I resize. All right, so for anyone who might have forgotten, my name is Gabrielle, and my real name is Gabrielle Gabrielli. Hey, we have some diving coming up, lots of diving coming up, and we're super excited. This is the teaching team. Several of us are here tonight, and you'll get to hear some teaching from them. We are all unpaid volunteers with the nonprofit organization Life Worth Leading, and we love what we do. It's really important work, and we have several combat wounded veterans in our program, including Walt, who's here tonight, and Jamie, who is not here. But several of us are going to give ourselves a little break and do some diving for fun later on this week. So that'll be neat. All right, our tentative schedule. I put the accelerated people in blue and everybody in white. I can't quite get the sizing down here. Let's see here. And it's probably pretty tiny, but there we go. So yeah, so we have only had one lecture so far, and then the accelerated pool session was Sunday, and we had open water dives Thursday. We had another accelerated pool session on Friday that was for a private group, but we had two of our students here also attend there. And tonight we have our lecture, and then on the 23rd and 30th, we have dives for accelerated students. Now, I put the stars by the 23rd because I wanted to show you that they did change the time. We're going to start 2 hours later than initially planned. So for anyone who has time constraints later in the day, that may not be the best option. So, and then we have August 9th is our next lecture. So we have a little break, and I encourage everybody to read those in this super accelerated class who need to get certified like this month. Then you are going to get a recording to some previous lectures. Okay. But for everyone else, be there on August 9th. And then we have the final review and exam on August 16th. The relaxed pace class we have, which is really the normal pace class. We have two pool sessions, one on the 13th, one on the 20th. And then we have 3 possibilities for checkout dives currently. Know that you only need to make 2 days of those dives or 4 total dives. And so each day has 2 dives, so you need to make 4 total dives. I add more dives all the time, so if these don't work in your schedule, it's not a problem. The most important thing is making the pool sessions. And then like for you, Garrett, in Bainbridge, you could tell me, hey, I don't want to go to Blue Grotto. Can you tell me when you have something a little closer? And then I'll plan things for like between Lake City and here. So we go to probably Orange Grove or Morrison or somewhere a little closer to you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing right now. I'm going to ask everyone to tell me in the accelerated class, I need to get numbers. So in the accelerated class, please tell me who will be attending. Those of you who've already done your pool sessions, who will be attending the July 23rd dives in Panama City. Please say your name, and I've clicked over to another screen because I want to capture this. Who's coming?
Luciana Leandro.
Good. Who else?
Lauren.
Lauren. All the L names. Okay. Who else?
Shannon and Kevin.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. What about the 30th? Who's coming on the 30th?
Andrea.
Great. Anyone else?
Lauren, I wanted to try and come on that one too, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Once you go once, you're going to want to come all the time. Yeah, and once you're already certified, you can continue to come diving. There's no extra charge. I do get a discount for anywhere that I dive. I get a discount, and I share my discount with you. So if you go by yourself, it's normally about $15 extra. And so everywhere that I get a discount, I give you my price for it. So the charter boat diving is $92. And then if you ever want to come diving again and need to borrow gear, there's no charge ever for the gear. I just ask you to chip in on the cylinders. So it's, $5 per cylinder, per air cylinder. So if you come on a 2-cylinder dive, it's going to cost you $10. So if anyone else wants to add, let me know. So far I only have 2 of you coming on the 30th and 5 of you on the 23rd. So we'll have a bunch of other scuba friends come too. And so that will be a lot of fun. It'll be awesome. The conditions have been incredible, like just loaded with sea life and lots of visibility and warm water and just lovely. So now, before I toss it back, let me just see who is coming on the 27th. Let's see, the 21st, I think I had first, the 21st. Hang on a second. Oh man, I have so many different, I think I have the 21st. Who's coming on the 21st? If you want, we can wait until the next lecture to figure this out. Who's doing the checkout dives in August?
You say the 21st, you mean of August?
August, yep. All right, I'll tell you what, I will just hold off on that. Oh, the 21st is a different group. I'm so sorry, but yeah, the 21st, you guys could come then too. So I have
I might be able to do the 21st.
Yeah, and I've got the 27th, the 17th. Yeah, the 27th of August, the 17th of September, and the 2nd of October for you all. And the thing is, if I have, as long as the numbers are manageable, we can have you join in other groups too, and they can join you. So
what about the 29th? And I thought you said Williston of this month. Is that still?
Yeah, the 29th is happening.
Okay.
I have
So
more.
Caleb and I would like to go to that one if we
Okay,
could.
that's going to be Morrison Springs. So Caleb and Marilyn, and then anyone else want to join? Morrison Springs on the 29th. There's no charge there. It's a county park. It's a Friday.
So Gabrielle, we need to do one more checkout dive. So if we don't do it before Panama City, we will join that one.
Okay, I definitely am diving. I'm waiting to hear back from the other students about next week diving. So I think you'll be able to come with us then next week as soon as I get some firm information from them. So
They're menacing.
what's that? Marilyn, did you say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the menace teenager cats we have here.
Okay. All right. So I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna, we will work on the rest of the schedule, who can make when later. We have plenty of time to figure it out before then. So let me at this time go back to screen sharing. And if you could just mute yourself until we're ready to, have anyone talk, that would be great. So the swimming requirements, those of you who've not had a swim session yet, make sure that you practice the exit skills. The hardest thing for most people is that underwater swim. My instructor allowed me a push-off, so you do get a push-off, but it's 50 feet underwater, and then the 300-yard swim on the surface is what we do next. That one's pretty easy for most people because you can do any kind of stroke that you want. And then we do the 15-minute tread water survival floating. The only people who really have challenges with that are people with zero body fat, and all you have to do is just inhale and then hold your breath and kind of fill your lungs and float on your head, and you'll be fine. So, all right, let me start with a review and see if you remember some of these things. 14.7, does this sound familiar? 33 feet of seawater, 34 feet of fresh water is absolute pressure. That's 1 atmosphere absolute. Air is made of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% other. Of course, that's approximate. It's really 20.9% oxygen, for example. Who remembers what Boyle's law is? What two things are related how?
Volume and pressure inversely related.
Excellent. What about Dalton's law? What is that? Feel free to look it up. I just want you to make sure you know these laws.
The total pressure exerted by a mixture of gases is equal to the sum of the particular pressures of each of the individual gases contained in the mixture.
Excellent. And what about Henry's law?
I have that highlighted, but I don't know what it meant.
Remember I say the old man sitting on the front porch drinking a soda bottle? Does that sound familiar? What's Henry's law?
At a constant temperature, the amount of a given gas that dissolves in a given volume of liquid is directly proportional to the partial pressure of that gas.
Yes, very good, Leandro. All right, what about Archimedes' principle? What is that?
That's the one where the guy wanted to find out the volume of gold in a crown.
Okay, what about
The
what
displacement?
What is
Talks
okay?
about
Good. What does it
displacement.
have to do with scuba?
Buoyancy.
Yes, it has everything to do with buoyancy. Very good. Very good. Let's see a little bit more review. Scuba cylinders need an annual visual inspection, and every 5 years they need a hydrostatic test. This is where they fill it to 5/3 of its capacity. We use wetsuits in less than 80 degrees. Some of us who are wimps like me, Ronnie, and Bill, we wear wetsuits in warmer than 80 degrees. In Panama City, by the way, it's in the low 80s. It's going to be lovely. You won't need a wetsuit unless you're a wimp like us. Red is the first color to disappear as you descend. And why is that?
Length of the wave?
Yes,
Is short?
exactly. On the color spectrum, you might remember Roy G. Biv, Roy, the R in Roy G. Biv standing for red. And objects are going to appear what? How are they going to appear underwater compared to on land?
Closer.
Yes, closer and larger. How often should you clear your ears?
As often as you need.
Early and often.
Early and often, early and often. Really not, Luciana, really not often as you need. You should clear before you need it. So you should try to just clear, and then that way there's no issues. Those of you with the Docs Pro plugs or the spray, you're gonna have it a lot easier in the water to clear your ears. Cardinal rule of scuba diving, always breathe, never hold your breath. Always breathe, never hold your breath. Ear changes under pressure, and I'm gonna emphasize ears again because ears are so important, and you want to protect your ears. So I mentioned in the class before this, we had 2 students who had messed up their ears by not taking good care of their ears, not clearing appropriately, and I'd never had a class before then that I had 2 students do it. So it's really important. After they did that, they then got the Docs Pro plugs. In fact, one doctor sent one of the students back to the pool like 2 weeks later and said he was not allowed to return without the Pro plugs. So it really does help. So an eardrum normal versus an eardrum showing squeeze, pressing in, and then the reverse block, it's an outer pressure. So clear early and often. If you don't clear early and often, what's going to happen? What's it called? Middle ear barotrauma. Sound familiar? Baro meaning pressure, trauma meaning injury. So we'll talk about lots of different kinds of barotrauma. What's going to happen if you have middle ear barotrauma? You're going to have a feeling of clogged or stuffed ears, maybe some discomfort, maybe some pain. If you do have pain, it's going to increase when you descend during diving. You may have fluid buildup and possibly even a little blood in the middle ear. You could even have eardrum rupture leading to vertigo and hearing loss. So protect your ears by clearing early and often. You can also purchase Docs Pro plugs. I'm a distributor for them. You can get, it's $15 for a pair for the regular, $20 for leashed. And then there's also a mineral oil that helps. You can use an alcohol solution as well. A lot of people use an alcohol solution. Don't use pure alcohol, rubbing alcohol in your ears. That's very bad for them, but you can add water and alcohol together. I prefer though and I used to use that until I discovered this is a mineral oil. It's all natural. And right now, if you do want them together, you get $5 off. So ear clearing, let's practice this again, everybody together. Pinch your nose, Valsalva maneuver. This is the most common way. Everybody practice. Pinch your nose, gently pinch your nose and gently blow air through your nose. Everyone practice. And see if you feel something in your ears. Next, voluntary tubal opening. You're going to tense your throat and push your jaw forward. Toynbee maneuver, pinch your nose and swallow. Frenzel maneuver, pinch your nose and make the sound of the letter K, basically pushing the tongue to the roof of your mouth. Lowry technique, pinch your nose, blow and swallow. I feel that one a lot. And then the Edmonds technique, pinch your nose, blow, and push your jaw forward. All right. Keep practicing ear clearing. And just know that if you've been on a plane before, you may find that one technique works well on a plane and it doesn't work when you're scuba diving. So you need to practice. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to toss it over to our next presenter.
So we're going to talk about SCUBA regulators. Just as in the name, it's going to regulate your the contents of your cylinder and its capacity to go into the pressure gauge, so you know how much leftover pressure gases you have. Obviously your the first stage is what regulates that, then your second stage, which you're breathing from, also like the hand pump one, and then also for your octopus.
Ximena,
So yes,
you are
Can
going
you-
to share your screen, right?
I thought I did. I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
clicked
Just making
the
sure.
share screen, but then I had to bounce back to my
No worries.
PowerPoint.
I just
so-
wanted to make sure. 'cause
All
it's
right,
really
I
hard.
apologize.
It's hard for people to process information without a visual.
I 100% agree. Yes, sorry about that. I was trying to. Okay, let me slideshow it now. Slide
Great.
showing it simultaneously. I don't have my multiple things. Okay, sorry. One more time. Okay, so SCUBA regulator obviously regulates your cylinder, the contents of your cylinder to the rest of your breathing, your underwater breathing apparatus equipment. So we have like I said, cylinder pressure to the diver. There's 2 pressure stages, as you all know. The demand open circuit. So you have your first stage ports. So that's the part that attaches to the cylinder. Your second stage, that's the part that you're breathing out of. And let's see. Sorry about that. And then, obviously it simultaneously gives the gases to your octo for emergencies, and then also to do the hand fills. So your first stage has several ports on it. If you ever go out and buy your own, you're going to notice this. Some of them don't come already put together, and you're going to be like, what are these guys? There's going to be different ports, and they're going to be for different things. So the 7/16 size is for the gauge. The 3/8 are for your breathing tubes, your inflator, and if you have a dry suit, then it would be for that one. So regulator care, if you've been diving with us, you know this is super duper important. If you ever go to buy your own regulator, you're going to know why. They're very expensive. You want to take care of them. You want to take care of Gabrielle's because she very nicely lends them out. And so, you always want to take really good care of them. If you came diving with us the other day out in the springs, that's fresh water as long as it doesn't get dirty, any dirt in there, and you keep, maintain it and stuff, and you put your dust cap back on. As soon as you remove it, it's generally okay. If it looks any kind of dirty, you want to wash it, but particularly after you dive in salt water, you need to clean it. We all know what salt water does to pretty much anything. It's going to ruin it. And again, if you go to price them, you'll see why. They're very expensive, and also they're very important. That's your life under the water. Your regulator is no good. It's a bad situation. So you're going to rinse it after each dive. Soap outside after a dive series. I suspect that. Do you want to talk about a little bit about that?
I use a bleach solution
Yeah.
rather than soap. I follow the Divers Alert Network protocols to make sure that everything is sanitized between students. So I definitely don't want to just use soap.
Yeah. So when we had, like at FSUPC, we have like the dive locker. So whenever we'd get back, we would dunk them. So obviously you want to make sure your dust caps are back on before you do that, and make sure just any equipment that you're dunking isn't something that you're not supposed to put in without some type of coverage. And you generally just do the mouth parts, so and rinse off the other part. So as we said, dust cap on, super duper important. Again, that's the part that attaches to the cylinder. That's the really, really important breathy part. You want it to be giving you the right amount of whatever air it is that your gases are that you're breathing. So let's see. Annual professional service, just like your cylinders, you want to make sure that your regulator is, again, in good working condition. This is your life device underwater. If it's not, and your buddy is not around, whatever the case may be, if somebody's not around, then that's your life. So you want to make sure that you do that. If you ever do go and buy your own equipment, you want to make sure that you get it checked out yearly. And any time that you're doing stuff like, so I do science diving, anytime that we're going to go out and do science diving, whoever's going to be the dive master person in charge always checks all the equipment, and you have to show them receipts that they were serviced. So you want to do it anyway because it's your life, but if you're going to be doing this for any purpose other than recreation, then you want to do it. You're going to have to do it anyway. So full overhaul each 2 years. So, I mean, again, you're not going to be doing these things yourself unless you take classes for that, and then you'll understand the importance of it. But basically, anytime that you're taking it to a similar dive shop, you'll let them know, like, this is when I got it serviced last, so they'll know what to do. But it'll basically be, you know, they'll check, make sure all the parts are working, and they'll replace any parts, which of course they'll do on the yearly, but it'll be like a trade out of things that need to be swapped out. Care of gear at a resort. So I'm not exactly sure where Gabrielle's going with
Yeah,
this
let
one.
me,
I'm sorry.
I can hop in here. When you
Okay.
are on a dive boat, not even at a resort, and you're on a dive boat, they're gonna have dunk tanks,
Mhm.
and they're filled with water. Do not be the last person off the boat, okay? Try to be one of the first people off the boat. Otherwise, that fresh water turns into salt water fast. And the first thing we're always gonna clean is the regulator sets, because they're the most important thing. And so we want to clean the regulator sets first, then we do the BCs, then we do everything else, because that's the order of importance. So when you dive with me in Panama City, you'll see we're going to hop off the boat first. We're going to get there. Everyone's going to take turns making sure the dust cap's on nice and tight, please. And then giving everything a thorough rinse and rubbing the salt crystals off of the metal parts of the regulator set. And then with the BCs, we dunk them. We actually intentionally fill them with fresh water, cleaning them, the salt that might be inside of them out, because salt crystals and chlorine are terrible for gear. And so, yeah, so that's where I was going with this. You want to make sure
Okay.
that you clean the important stuff first.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I'm looking at it. So another thing is, I know that some boats will have stuff, there's like sometimes a camera container. So you want to make sure that you're not dunking like your other equipment in the one that's for cameras, because,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
obviously you don't want to scratch other people's things and mess
No,
them up.
Ximena, that's
So,
a really important point. They'll, most dive boats will have two buckets, one that says, well, they're not always labeled, one that is for masks and one that is for cameras. And if you put your mask in the camera bucket, they're going to get very upset with you, because it's going to have chemicals that can potentially really harm the very nice cameras that will be on board. So if in doubt, because sometimes they're not labeled, just say which one is for cameras. Now, personally, I would never put my mask in a public bucket, because you're basically getting everybody else's germs. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Even before COVID, I wouldn't do that. I never did that. I just thought it was just kind of odd. Like if somebody had some crud on their mask from their scuba snot, you know, okay, let's just spread all the germs among all the people. But some people do that. I'd rather just use the shower. Almost all boats have showers, and you can just use the shower and do a rinse there. So.
Yeah, and another thing that just popped in my head about the mask is, I know when we were in Jupiter, one of the other things that they had was actually a bucket for like pre-diving. So it would be like the one to like put your mask in for pre-diving so that it won't fog up. And then this will probably be for later, but another thing that you need to really be careful of, which is maybe where I thought you were going with this one about resorts, is if you go to resorts in like a lot of other places, like you want to make sure, like check all that gear. You know, not everybody has like the same requirements and things like that we have, and you just want to make sure, like Gabrielle, if you're diving out with her, she's going to make you check your cylinder gas mixture if you're ever diving not just air. She's going to make you check it, and that's this very good reason, like not just the pressure, but also the mix percentages, because it's not always what it says. And again, that can be your life, because you're putting that into your computer, and your computer thinks you're diving off one thing and you're diving off something else. So, you know, again, just make sure all your gear is working. So always, you know, never think that because you're on, you know, an expensive trip somewhere else, and they're giving you all the things and dressing you out and whatever, you know, that's what you should do. Always do your buddy checks. Especially if you don't know your buddy, if they even seem like a lackadaisical person, may try to swap out. But never just assume that the gear that you're getting, because it's from, you know, a dive shop, that, and not crapping on any dive shops, but some of them, they're just not up all the same, you know. And so you want to make sure that you're doing all your checks, and you're not just like saying, oh, okay, well, it's coming from a dive shop, so I'm good. It's sometimes not, and the pressures aren't the same and whatever. So all those things to think about.
Yeah,
all
you're
of the
definitely
time.
responsible for your own gear. And so
Yeah.
when you go to a resort, people who only dive in resorts get a little spoiled and they think everyone's taking
Mhm.
care of everything. But ultimately, you need to check everything,
Yep.
everything,
Mhm.
everything. All right, great.
Okay, all right, moving on, sorry. Oh, my button is stuck. Okay, alternate air sources. So this will be for later on if you're doing other things. So like I do, well, I don't do it like all the time, but I was trained in cavern. And so we always have a pony bottle. So you have, you know, your regular cylinder on your back, and then you have a pony bottle for in case of emergencies. You know, we used it as like a sling, so we had it in front of us strapped up tight. There's different kinds again of alternate air sources. If you get into further diving where you're doing longer dives or cavern diving or cave diving, you're going to be using some of these things. So here's another
And
method. So it's like a
Ximena,
kind of,
personally,
yeah,
I tell recreational divers that if you see somebody with one of these, don't buddy up with them. These are normally
Yeah.
people who push
Mhm.
the limits. There are
Yeah.
exceptions, right? But typically it's
Yeah.
going to be someone like a photographer who's going to be paying more attention to taking pictures than to their dive buddy. And
Other things,
you know,
yeah.
if you're a good diver, you don't need a pony bottle. You don't need something to get you out of trouble. If you're
No, not unless,
good.
yeah, I mean, if you're in a cavern or something, they're kind of, you definitely want one, but if you're just out doing like dives and the only other person on the, or the only person on the boat has is your buddy, you want to be careful because you don't have it. So why in the world would they need to stay longer than you if they're your buddy? It doesn't make any sense. But if you do go on to further certs and things like that, where you're doing some kind of different things where you need these, then you'll use these. But anywho, obviously your octopus, we all use these all the time. This is, of course, if something happens to your regulator or if something happens to your buddy's air and then you need to share. And obviously this one, as you know, you can go ahead and pump it up if you need to float on the top already, if you need to control your buoyancy, or in cases of emergency.
Yeah, and I'm
And
not,
then of course,
I'm not a fan of the integrated integrated into BC, the Octo being integrated into the BC, because in case of an emergency, that's also your power inflator hose. And
mhm,
you have less control and then you're trying to, you know,
mhm,
put this in your mouth and give your primary to whoever's life you're saving. So I'm not a big fan of these.
yeah.
I'd rather have an octopus.
Okay. So information systems, as you guys seen, it kind of feels a little task heavy now, but later on it'll get really regular and there'll be a bunch of other task loady stuff that you can work on if you choose. But attached, you know, to one of the gauges on your first stage is going to be these guys. Of course, as you all know, we use it to know how much PSI we have, to know how long we can dive, of course, in conjunction with our computers. So there's different types. There's ones that have, you know, pressure gauges, and then also a compass or a pressure gauge, and obviously a depth reader. And then there's ones that have the computers that are integrated within them. So of course it has the pressure gauge and then a computer, and you'd manipulate it on there. Computers obviously come as well in wristwatches. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of those. I have one, I really like it, but it can also get clunky. And sometimes people have both. Although the one person I knew that had multiple was kind of one of those people Gabrielle was just talking about. So I would say that it's not dangerous to have more computers, but you're kind of like, is this person just wearing all the stuff to look a certain way? But anyway, and then of course the compass, you can have a few of those, and we'll get kind of more into compasses later, but it seems a little bit tedious under the water, but super duper helpful if you need to find your way. So we'll talk a little bit about compasses, and I'll say that when I first started diving, I didn't pay too much attention to my compass, even though I should have, because I was using it for science diving. And then also you should use it. And I think that getting into the habit of doing it like early on is probably better. So, and I wish I had done that. So that's just some heads up from me. But like anytime you're going to get in the water and you're going to go, you know, a certain way or whatever, and you're, you know, even if you're on one of the dive boats that's going to come pick you up from somewhere, like if you're going to head in a direction that you guys know, when you hop in the water, look at your compass and see which way that is. And remember that the boat is the opposite way of that. And I think we'll talk about that some more. And it's even good to practice. You could practice on land. So we would have to do that in our science diving class. You know, just kind of follow it without actually looking kind of in front of you, and try to follow, you know, some type of little map legend that you make. But this is really helpful. This can, you know, I don't want to say in blackout situations, but like even the couple of you that came out to Blue Grotto or the Big Blue the other day, as you saw, like with the kicking, it can get really silty and stuff, and it can be sometimes, especially as an early diver, confusing about where you are. And so if you have that compass and some type of light capacity, and you can at least see that, you can make your way out of most situations. So again, depending on how much more you guys want to get with your certifications, not only should you know how to do it, but you're going to need to know how to do it. So like I do underwater archaeology, and we are usually in water that you can't see your hand in front of your face, and we have flashlights on our heads. And so we have to use compasses to know where we're going, like to find our excavation units, and then to get back to the boat and whatnot, especially in current situations again. So I would say to just get used to that, like already, anytime you're hopping in the water, like even just for fun, be like, even if we, again, for the few of you who went out to Big Blue the other day, like start doing it at the canoe and say, okay, this is where the drop off is, this is where at, just to start getting acclimated to it, because it's a really good habit to have. Because again, sometimes you'll be like, oh shoot, you know, sometime out at the wrecks and stuff, like at Panama City, we were out at one of the wrecks out there, and I remember someone was just kind of following me around, and I'm like, well, thank goodness I can still see the boat, because at that point I was like, man, I really should have kind of, when I dropped down at my line and started my trajectory, I should have really looked at like where my line was and where I was going. Because sometimes, you know, you think, oh, a 15 feet visibility, I could see it right there. All of a sudden you're looking at something and you turn around and you're like, that boat, I can barely see anymore. So again, I would practice it on land. Any kind of compass will do. And then anytime you're getting in the water, just start trying to like think about it at least. Again, so you can have them on your wrist, and then you can have them on the console as well. And there's like the bits and pieces of them. I'm sure everybody has some familiarity with a compass, but sometimes they can be a little bit, I think, again, when you're like task loaded and stuff, it can be a little bit confusing. So if you get acclimated to using it and you start setting your bezel so that you remember, like if you're starting off this way and you know you need to come back at you know, at this degree, if you set your bezel at that degree, it'll kind of just be more helpful when you're following that line, if that makes sense.
So Ximena, we don't really get too much into compasses in open water. It's
yeah,
advanced that we do. So I wouldn't spend too much time here.
okay, yeah.
Thanks.
All right, we already talked about a bunch of this stuff, so we'll go over that later if you keep on going. I think this is the end of mine, or am I still, I don't know what number I'm on, so I'm sorry, I can't see. Gabrielle?
Who's up
Oh,
after?
yeah, I think that's
Who's up after Ximena?
I think that's me.
All right, you ready?
Oh, hopefully.
Okay. I think you had until the end of the module, but
oh, I'm sorry, I'll keep going. It doesn't have the number on the bottom for some reason anymore, so I'll keep on going. Okay.
The end of the module.
Okay, so accessories, again, different things that you'll be doing if you keep on going, because I don't think you do night dives with open water. If you do AOW, advanced open water, you'll probably do a night dive. But, you know, so you might use an underwater flashlight. Like I said, we use them in underwater archaeology. And then anytime you're going to go into cavern and stuff. So that'll kind of be for future stuff. But it's always good to have just in case if you're ever going to be in a silty situation. Dive knives. If you're going, you should kind of have some type of cutting device on you all the time. A lot of people use the dive knife, but you can even have like dive scissors or something in your pocket. You never know when you're going to get caught up on something, especially when you're out in salt water. You can get caught up on fishing line. But again, for those of you who are out at Big Blue, you know, we have a bunch of stuff on us all the time. And so sometimes you can get wrapped up in tree branches or things like that. And there's just line and rope and stuff, as we know from people doing stuff. It's Florida, so there's a lot of water activity going on. But sometimes that can really trap you, and you can cut them off much easier with a dive knife or dive scissors than you can trying to like get frustrated and do it and use up your air. And then sometimes too, you know, sometimes you might see some type of marine life or aquatic life that has something wrapped around them. And I'm sure, as you guys have seen on social media, that's a good tool to have to kind of help a little funnel friend if they need it to. But mostly it's to help you or unleash you from something, or your buddy from something if you guys are trapped. Dive flag, always got to have this, some type of indicator that you're diving. You do not want to
Ximena, do
you know,
you
be hit by
always
a
have
boat.
to have it?
I'm sorry?
You always have to have a dive flag?
No, I didn't say always. I actually said you always should have a dive flag.
No. Should you always have a dive flag? Are there times when you don't need a dive flag?
I think in controlled waters, you don't need to have one, right?
Only need a dive flag in navigable waters. That is a test item. Only when there are boats. You don't need it in places like Blue Grotto, where there's no possibility of a boat coming. In fact, it would be cumbersome, and we would have people, you know, crossing their lines if we did that, if every diver had a dive flag or overhead.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about boats from Big Blue the other day, but yeah, I wasn't even thinking about Blue Grotto. Yes, if you're in some type of controlled water, then you don't need one, yeah. And then if you, for especially the group that's going out to PC, you'll definitely be using these, but a safety sausage. So this is obviously just in case of, well, it's not, I was gonna say, it looks like it's for just in case of emergencies, but when you go out diving, especially in areas where there's high waves and stuff, when you pop up, you will deploy this, and that will help your dive boat come and pick you up faster. But of course, in case of emergencies as well, it's giant, it's orange, and it's waving around. They come in other colors too, but it's basically so someone can see you, and you want this anytime you know, you're out diving in again, sort of navigable waters, and then any water that's going to be larger that people can immediately see you.
And we
Do you
teach
wanna add
that
anything?
we don't teach that in open water. It's only in advanced. We really
Oh,
don't
okay.
see these much in Panama City. It's really not necessary. We don't have big currents. In
Mhm.
South Florida, they're required. So
Okay.
we're going on a trip in South Florida where there's drift diving. Everyone is required to have an SMB there, and you have to be advanced certified also. So big
Okay.
difference. But yeah, you'll get into that later. You definitely don't need to know about this yet. I mean, you need to know about it, but you don't need to know how to deploy one. You don't need to actually deploy one.
Yes. Sorry, guys. I've been OW was a long time ago for me. But yeah. And then specialized equipment. Again, if you continue on with diving, you'll get into some of this stuff. But you know, I recommend getting your nitrox certs, because it just opens a different world for you, and also your advanced open. But there's a whole bunch of fun stuff that you can do with an open water and on air alone as well. But yeah, like you said, you could do nitrox or special trainings like I did. You know, there's of course cavern, there's rec, there's advanced, lots of fun stuff. I'm sure like most people that I know, at least as they start diving, they want to continue going on, but some people do not. And again, I always say that to people who are not super interested in continuing on, especially like in the Keys. There's like some beautiful, amazing things that you can see with an open water cert at about 15 to 25 feet of water. But if you do want to continue on, Gabrielle teaches a broad array of things, and then if she doesn't teach a certain thing, she knows the right people who do. This is going to be something way later, but in essence, this is a rebreather as it states, and it sort of utilizes your own air and clears it out and then gives it back to you in a sense. So sort of recirculating the air so that you can continue using it. Do you want to add anything to that? I think this
Yeah,
is way later.
Just that, yeah, obviously this is not anywhere anyone here is going to get to anytime soon. And I have no desire to dive a rebreather. I know some people who do dive rebreathers. To me, the technology is still not there. I personally have known people who've had incidents with rebreathers. So we teach about it, but definitely it's not anything that I recommend because the technology is not quite there yet. I think. Yeah, there's just too many incidents with them. So. The concept is great.
Yeah. So we talked about this the other day, and I'm sure Gabrielle's talked to you all about it. I haven't been on all the classes, but I know we talk about this a lot, and we talked about it earlier. So the buddy system, what is a buddy? Anytime that you're diving, you want to have a buddy. You need to have a buddy with you. I cannot stress this enough. I don't know why anybody would want to go diving without a buddy. You know, this is if you're, and Gabrielle and I were talking about this the other day. I always say this is diving is a beautiful, wonderful, amazing thing, and I love it very much. But it's a thing that, like, in reality, if you do everything right, there's still a possibility of something happening. And so why would you even want to risk doing anything wrong? And so having a buddy is super important because that risk is there. And so having a person there who can then help you or you help them is ideal. So that's why you want to have somebody who is coming behind you and double checking your equipment. So in case you miss something or if you got complacent on something. And then also in case of emergencies underwater, this is a person who can cut you loose if you're tied up. This is a person who can share their octo with you. This is a person, even if you're having some trouble with your cylinder or your gear, they can come behind you and fix it, you know. So super important. And also, just if you get lost, this is the person who's going to look for you a bit and then go up and say, hey, this person is lost, which increases much more your chances of being found before a tragedy occurs. So how close should you swim to your buddy? Does anybody want to answer that? No.
3 feet.
Anybody?
3 feet's a good guess. I say close enough to render assistance.
Line of sight.
Oh, line of sight. Now you could be 100 feet away, and that wouldn't be good, right? So at Big Blue on Thursday, we had phenomenal visibility. You could see people 100 feet away, but that would be too far away if there was an emergency. So it's close enough to render assistance. So in the case of really low visibility or tough conditions like current, you want to be really close to the person, possibly even in touch contact with them. And so like when we're doing out of air buddy drills, that's definitely touch contact with the person. But typically it's close enough to render assistance. So if it's really good visibility, you know, it might be 10 feet. It might be 15 feet, but I try not to get too far away from my buddy because you never know when something might happen. Besides, buddy diving is sharing something cool. So like, I'm really good at spotting things. And if my buddy's not there and I want to tell him like, hey, that's a sign for an octopus. Hey, I see an octopus, you know, and my buddy's too far away, they're going to miss out. So it is really good to be close, but not too close. You don't want to like kick each other and stuff. So
yeah, there is some confusion. Yeah, and Gabrielle makes a very good point because there is some confusion. Some dive classes will be like, oh, you have to kind of be right next to each other where you can touch, but you're not supposed to be touching or whatever, you know, but then that gets a little fumbly and you're kind of like hitting each other or whatever. And then it's like you get used to, or you're trying to do that. So then you're like, where are they? Are they up, down? And then you're spending more time trying to locate your buddy than you are, you know, looking at sites. But at the same time, you should know where your buddy is, you know, at all times. And then again, it's like close enough to render aid in case of an emergency, and also vice versa. If you need aid, you want them close enough that they can hear you, you're making noise or whatever, so that they'll look at you. You could tell them you're out of air. So, it just depends on your surroundings as well, visibility, and also, is it an area where there is a lot of trees down or a lot of like obstacles and things like that in your way? So just keep all that stuff in mind and just, use common sense. So
Can I say something about the buddy thing?
yeah, for sure.
The way I've seen that, well, one way I kind of do it is I typically have either the more experienced diver right behind the least experienced diver. So the least experienced is kind of leading, and the more experienced can sit behind and actually like watch them. Either right, just barely above and behind, so like they're right above them, or off to the side.
Yeah, Jacob, we really want to teach people to be good buddies and not assume that one person is better than another. And really, we want to teach them to swim side by side whenever possible. And in a situation, maybe wall diving, like those of you who are going to the Bahamas and you're diving a wall, then you might have one person in the lead, and because you don't want to be side by side, because the person who is next to the wall is going to see everything. So you'd have one person in the lead one way and the other person in the lead on the way back. You don't ever want to have like the stronger buddy be the leader all the time. You really want to encourage both people to be responsible buddies. So let's move forward, please, because we are running behind time.
For sure. I'm sorry.
That's
Okay. So we touched on this, and as you guys already know, your buddy is there to help you and for you to help them. They're there to double check your work. I think it just keeps you like on point, because someone's going to come check your gear and you're going to check theirs, and you don't you don't want to be called out, and you don't want anything to happen to anybody. So you guys are just working there as a team to try to make sure everything's right. And just in case, even if you do everything right, something happens, that person is there to help you get out of that situation. So a good buddy does a buddy check like we talked about. You're going to, as we did the other day, and I'm sure the rest of you have done in other things, you're going to go behind, and it's, not to call anybody out. It's just to make sure that all the things are in the right place. Help on the surface. This is like if somebody needs help getting their gear on, not everybody can plop their gear over there. So depending on what situation they're going to help you. They might help you put your fins on. They might do whatever it is that you need. It's good to find a good buddy, but sometimes they mix around a lot, and so it's just like you need to also vocalize your needs and ask them what theirs are. Yeah, this is just kind of reiterating both before and after the dive. So if you need help, say it. If they need help, just offer it. If you've already got all your stuff off and they don't, offer assistance if you can. Again, buddy check. It just doesn't just happen on the surface. It happens in the water. You're just kind of looking out for bubbles coming out, or if anything, if your buddy is seemingly all of a sudden acting different, all these things could be any number of things, and you want to just maintain that awareness. Stay close while underwater, like we talked about. And these are just some buddies being good buddies. Always making sure people aren't jumping into the water when their air is off. Your cylinder's full. Again, you ask, what's your PSI? And it's just kind of a reminder too, and helpful to get people to write it down as well.
This is actually talking about checking. You check each other's gear. And so this is the check. Just go through this quickly. You make sure the air is on, the cylinder is full, the cylinder band is tight, you lift it by the straps.
We talked about, so cylinder band tight, that the cylinder is not going to find out, that the hoses are correct and all in the right place. Your power inflator is working. So the same things that you do, you're going to do to your buddy. Your weight system, do they have the right weight? And then you're going to ask them, how are you feeling? Do you feel good to do this dive? And if anybody ever says no, then you call the dive, unless, there's certain circumstances, and Gabrielle will get into that later, but you want to always check. And if you don't feel good, say it, but ask your buddy as well. Staying close to your buddy, we talked about this already, so we won't get into that much more. And Gabrielle talked about situations when it would be a different thing. And learning to keep track of your buddy. This is just something you'll get used to. And positioning with buddies. Yeah, these are all things you should talk about everything that you can talk about on the surface is always better because it's just harder to communicate underwater, obviously. So the more things that you can decide either while you're driving out to a site or while you're getting ready, or while you're on a dive boat, is better to do it. Like talk about all these things and go over hand signals, because you know sometimes they are a little bit different or people get used to different things. So you're going to talk about positions, you're going to talk about hand signals and stuff, and then again maintain like whatever you agree upon above water, continue to do that under the water until the next dive. If you think something is going to be better, different, talk about it for the next dive. And know your dive plan. Super important. Gabrielle pushes this, so I'm sure all of you know, you're always going to talk about your dive plan. You're going to go over what your dive plan is going to be. You're going to talk about what you're going to do. The general, if you're going to do anything for training, you're going to talk about that too. Again, because it's harder to communicate underwater. So she's going to have you do X, Y, Z. You're going to talk about it, and she's going to say, I'm going to have you do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to look at you and I'm going to do this. And that's what that means. So that's kind of the same as you're going to do in a dive plan. You're not going to be doing trainings with your buddy, but you're going to say, hey, we're going to jump in, we're going to go this way, we're going to look this, this, and that. I mean, things might change, but ideally you would have a good idea of what you're doing. As you guys know, time and depth plan, you're going to talk about how long you're going to go and how deep you're going to go. And then whatever you plan, keep it. If you get to a dive site and things are different, agree on changes that are made and talk about them. Look for your buddy every minute. And we didn't talk about maybe losing your buddy. What happens if you lose your buddy? You look around. Does anyone know how long you should look around for? Anybody? Take a guess? No? Okay, we're late. No more than 1 minute. So you take around, look, no more than 1 minute. You know, try to do a good little look around, but no more than 1 minute, because again, if they're lost underwater and something's happening, you want to be able to get up on time in order to let people know that they're there. Use noise signals. I don't know what you teach them, but we do this. You can hear that really well under the water. I'm sure there's a series of things you can do. Tap in on your tank with something, any type of that. So try to do that. Bad visibility. So again, this is a really good way to do it. In bad visibility, you can kind of go up a little bit, try to look around for bubbles, but again, no more than a minute. If you don't see them in a minute, ascend to the surface, get help, and have somebody better, more trained than you, or the dive master, whatever, come out. So buddy diving, it's supposed to be fun, you know, again, like Gabrielle said, like it's one thing if one person is more trained than the other, but the better trained person, or more trained person rather, you don't want them to be fun monitoring you the whole time. Like everybody's supposed to be having a good time. So it's not about one person monitoring another person. It's about everybody having a good time, but doing it safely. And this is the summary.
Very good.
So-
Thank you. We're going to toss it over to Jacob next while Jacob is getting his ready. And Jacob, if you'll go ahead and start screen sharing. And Ximena, thank you for being here. I know you've got your mom in town in Miami, and so we will see you soon. And thanks for diving with us. It was wonderful to have you there on Thursday, whatever day that was. That was great to have you there. So before Jacob gets started, we talked about time and depth. Ximena talked about time and depth. What's the deepest that an open water recreational diver can go to? An open water certified recreational diver. Once you earn your certification here, what's the max depth you're allowed to go to?
100 feet.
No.
Well, it's like 60.
It's 60 feet, 60 feet, 60 feet. Important to know. 100 feet is if you get advanced certified. Do not go to 100 feet without certification. There are some things that can happen to you that you won't be trained to know what to do. And that includes nitrogen narcosis. So seriously, 60 feet, and that is a test question. 60 feet is the recreational dive limit for open water divers. Advanced, yes, 100, but you're going to go through a lot of skills training to get to that. Okay. All right. Thank you. Jacob.
I have no idea if it's sharing or not.
You're sharing. I see it. Module 4 is skills needed to dive. Go ahead.
Okay.
Jacob,
I can't see the
first time.
module 4.
All right. We can see it. So
Okay. Skills needed to dive.
Jacob's first time teaching. So, okay.
Skills needed to dive safely. Water entries. You'll learn some of those for open water. You might have already learned a couple. Some scuba skills like buddy breathing, hand signals, majority of things like that. Managing excess stress. And that can be with just like staying calm and making sure your body's calm and everything. Managing physical problems. It can be like any, these two can kind of go together. Emergencies, physical problems can be different things between buddies or anything wrong. Introduction to dive tables. I don't know if you've already went over dive tables with them or not.
No, this is the class where we're getting into dive tables at the end of it. So you're not going to be covering dive tables. That'll be later. So,
Okay. And my computer is a little slow, so can you see this stuff up
we
here?
can see it. We can see it. We can see your cursor moving around on the screen too.
No, I mean like you see like mute and participants and stuff.
No, we just see the screen that says water entries. We just see your slide. So
I
you're
can't
good.
read. I can't read anything under this. But water entries. You'll learn shore entries, which is where you kind of help each other. You get like waist knee deep, and then you and your buddy get your fins on, and you kind of walk in backwards. And
Jacob, let
that's
me say something about this that's important. The book teaches you what you just said, which is you walk in backwards wearing your fins. But those of us who've dived in the Gulf of Mexico before, including in Panama City, know that if we walk in our fins in our kind of sand, what's going to happen?
oh, you'll probably get stuck.
Yeah, you get stuck. And so we don't do this. What we do, if we dive the jetties in Panama City, for example, what we do is we actually walk out forward, holding our fins, mask and snorkel in our mouth. You see, they have regulators in their mouth. We don't have big waves here. So we walk forward, and if a breaker comes, we turn our back and we pass the breakers. Then we do, just like we're going to do in the pool, we do a figure 4 with our legs, lean to the left, put our left fin on, lean to the right, put our right fin on. We help put each other's fins on. Then we switch to regulator and we go dive. So the book will teach you just what Jacob said, but we would not do that here because it would not make sense. We would lose our fins as we were trying to walk through the very soft powder white sand that will suck the fins off of your feet if you're trying to walk in it. So, okay.
Surf entries. I honestly do not remember what those are, but boat entries you'll learn like giant stride and the back roll, which is this is the giant stride. Put a foot out and kind of step off the back roll. You sit on the edge, make sure this is deep enough because you will not have a fun time if you hit the bottom with your tank.
Cylinder, guys, both of you use cylinder,
Cylinder.
Ximena and Jacob, right? So the tank is slang. So the back roll entry is done most commonly off of a small private boat. So the giant stride entry is done off of most dive boats. So when we go to Panama City, we'll be doing giant strides.
Surface snorkeling to dive sites is mainly to conserve air as you're going, so you're not wasting it while on the surface in case you need it for anything on your dive, such as like emergencies and such. Switching to regulator, I'm pretty sure most of you at the pool session, but whenever you switch from snorkel to regulator, I think we went over that.
Jacob,
pool
keep in
session.
mind that half the people in this class haven't had a pool session yet. So the ones who
Oh.
have know about this.
So just whenever you're switching, whenever you switch to the regulator, a lot of times it might have water or something in it, so you'll be blowing out through the regulator to kind of clear it, and then you can start breathing from it. I don't know if anything's above this, but 3 important rules. Equalize early and often, always breathe, never hold your breath, Exhale continuously with regulators out of your mouth, usually like a small stream of bubbles or something. You don't want to like blow out as hard as you can, just enough where it's coming out of your lungs. Correct weighting, no in, no air in BC floating above mask. Usually people go by like eye level. While breathing, usually if you breathe out, you'll go down if you're properly weighted. And then trim. Descending on a line, a lot of times people don't usually hold the lines because they'll have like bits of jellyfish and stuff on them, so they'll sting your hands. I learned that the hard way one time, and it's not fun getting that off your hands.
More commonly, there's barnacles on lines too, so.
If they've been sitting in the ocean for like these mooring lines for like reefs, these are meant for if it's attached to a reef or something, so that they don't drop their anchor and destroy the reef. So these could definitely have growth on them. Usually, people just deflate their BCs and just kind of cruise down by the line, as long as you keep it in sight and your buddy in sight.
Now listen, when we go to Panama City, we are all going to descend on a line, holding the line. It's going to make your descending a lot easier. So when you're descending on the line in Panama City, you are going to be able to clear your ears easier, hang on to the line. You can pull yourself back up a little bit if you are having any problems with your ears. It's going to make everything easier coming back up. You're going to hold the line the whole way. When we go to Blue Grotto and other places, you're going to see lines there, and I don't want you to use them. And I'll let you know in advance, okay? But really, we don't touch things, except one reason we use a line in the ocean is that there can be surface current, there can be current at different areas. And so if we pull ourselves down the line, we're going to end up right on that shipwreck, or wherever we're going, we're going to end up on the dive site. If we just floated and there was a current and we thought we were too cool to hold the line, we just might miss things, okay? And I've done that. I've dived the USS Sand before, and it's not fun. Okay.
So descending, clearing ears, clear the ears early and often, at depth, inflate BC to become neutral. If you're already neutral when you're clearing your ears, then you won't have to do this part. But you do want to try and maintain neutral buoyancy at all times.
Jacob,
And
Jacob, if they're going to a dive site that's 60 feet deep and they get to 60 feet, which law is it that makes them need to add a little air to the BC to get neutrally buoyant?
I do not remember.
Who can tell me? Why would you need to add air to your BC to become neutrally buoyant when you get to depth? Who can tell me? Which law? The most important law in scuba diving.
Was the Archimedes?
No, that has to do with buoyancy. You're right about that, but that's not the law that causes us to need to add air to our BC. We become heavier at depth. Our wetsuit compresses. That's a little hint. So what do you think? Which law would it be? Boyle's law. Okay, move on. Boyle's law. Pressure and volume are inversely proportional.
Yeah, so you will have to inflate as you go down and deflate as you go up. So neutrally buoyant, typically, they're in trim. Sometimes if they don't have their trim, like some BCs don't allow you to put like weights and stuff in the shoulders, and people will get like little weights to put on their actual tank, like with a strap to get some weight up towards.
We're not going to talk about putting weights in places any other than weight belts for this class. This is open water class, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Neutrally buoyant, they're able to hold this position. If they're too heavy, their feet will be sinking and they'll be kind of kicking towards the bottom. If they're too light or floating towards the surface, they'll be kicking down in this kind of position here. So streamlining, you don't want things hanging out like a Christmas tree. you're not a Christmas tree whenever you dive. You want things nice and tidy if you can. I think you have like clips on your gauges to like clip them to the BCs or pockets you can stick them in. This can cause issues when you're close to the bottom. It'll drag across the ground, or the bottom anyways. It'll kick up silt. It can damage the regulators, sometimes very severely. This can cause free flowing and some other issues. So it's better to keep it where it's not touching anything. So this diver's clipped up the way they should be. This one is not. Their gauges is over here. Their octopus on the bottom, and it looks like they're a little too heavy on the weight. So during ascent, you check your gauges. Really, you should be checking your gauges all the time, just to make sure that you're not running too low on PSI. Usually going by thirds. Whenever you begin the ascent, you're going to make sure you and your buddy are good. Now, is this for like after the 15-foot safety stop, or is this before?
Are you asking the class?
I'm asking you because I'm not
Yes,
just
so the
sure.
safe-
I mean,
the safe ascent is after the safety stop. So after we've done our 3 minutes at 15 feet, then we're going to hold one arm up and turn and look and go nice and slow.
and this is just to avoid running into anything on the surface, looking for boats, other divers, and things like that. Using a line can be better just because you can actually hold and feel your position, and always be looking up. Notice she's deflating her BC as she goes up. I think it's a she, I'm not sure. That's why they're holding it in this position. Same thing with this person. Buddy plan. Advantages of a buddy: sharing safety, planning to dive, depth, time, turn around, with the sea hand signals, becoming separated. This was talked about a little bit with the slides before I started. I thought it was going to go into more of that, but you want me to go back and like talk about that stuff, or is
It's okay. We can cover it later. Go ahead and do a refresher of hand signals.
so everybody knows what the OK sign is?
Jacob, a really good thing here to do would be to ask people to show you these signs. Okay.
So everybody do the OK sign. I'll just go through. A lot of people might have already done it. And OK on the surface. Does everyone remember what that is? And ear problems. Hold this depth. Remember what that is? And buddy up. What is that one? And low in air.
Again, I've only ever seen this one time. It was at the Georgia Aquarium. Nobody uses this sign in real life.
And out of air. And up or ascend. And help. Okay, and there's a hidden image apparently.
No, it's a build, Jacob. For future reference, you need to practice your slides before you teach. Okay. You're going to click and you're going to see each of the things. So you would ask people, what is this? And they'd say ear problems, click. So you need to watch past lectures to refresh yourself. This is hold this depth. and so on. Okay, just move forward at this point.
So for ascending, one or both buddies decide to end the dive. Usually it's whenever they get to after they use about 1,000 psi after a full tank by thirds. Hand signal exchange. I don't know if it shows, but hand signal is just to go up. A lot of people call it thumbing the dive. And you check your gauges, begin ascent, vent BC, and track your buddy. You do your safety stump for 3 minutes at 15 feet. And you do your safety up to the surface where you're looking up and holding your arm up and doing circles, kind of spinning kind of, just to make sure you're clear. Inflate the BC, and then whenever you hit the surface, and switch to snorkel. So for exiting the water, this can change depending on circumstances, but this looks like just a boat exit. Fins in hand, mask in place, and regulator or snorkel in mouth. I do not see a regulator or a snorkel in the mouth, but I could just be blind here. So equipment problems, heavy, confining wetsuits, losing equipment, and malfunctions.
This has to do
Usually
with
has to do with what?
stress. It says additional
Stress.
stressors. Mhm.
Okay. So normally, if you're having any equipment problems, you call the dive unless you have backup equipment. A lot of people don't typically have backup equipment, but if you do, and it works properly and has been serviced, you can use that. Heavy equipment, I'm assuming is what this is talking about, is kind of a problem in a majority of the time, because if you have too much heavy equipment on you, it acts as weight, and a lot of people don't ask for BCs, but they have like a lift capacity kind of for like a certain amount of pounds they can actually lift. If you exceed that with equipment, you'd have to dump equipment just to go up for the most part. That's how some divers don't make it back. Confining wetsuits, I'm assuming this means that it's too tight and can be like uncomfortable. Or some wetsuits don't have like the neoprene or soft stuff on the inside, so you actually have to wear like rash guards with them and use, I forget what kind of, I think it's like a lubricant or something that you put in it just so you can get in. Losing equipment, this can be for flashlights, fins, mask, things like that. That can cause quite a bit of stress. Any malfunction like a free-flowing regulator, typically the first stage goes first, though sometimes the regulator can go. Usually it's an O-ring blowing or something failing in it. It could be from corrosion, many different things. Doing a buddy check prior to diving usually prevents any of this. Making sure to check that they're not too heavy, that their wetsuit fits properly and everything, and make sure that their equipment is properly secured and check for malfunctions. Typically equipment fails on the first or last dive, which for doing 2 dives, you have a chance of it happening on any. Maintain your equipment, doing servicing, bring it to the shop. I think you have to do it every year or either year and a half.
It depends on the equipment, and we do teach which one. Most are every year, but there are some that are every 2 years or every 5 years.
So task loading, You'll feel task loaded on your first dives. Relax and think through it. My main thing is just observe and try to stay calm and just think about what's going on. Whenever you think through it, just get through it best you can. If you don't feel comfortable enough on, let's say, your first dive, you can always do it for the next dive. Now, low visibility, more than likely will not experience this kind of low visibility, but they could probably see better than what the camera can the majority of the time. Low visibility situations, a lot of people will actually panic just because they can't really see what's in front of them or around them. And it's very easy to lose your buddy in this kind of a situation. So it's good to have them very close by so you can have contact with them. Physical threat. So could be sharks. I don't know if Florida has sea snakes or not. Most sea snakes are kind of docile, but they are very venomous. With sharks, typically, smaller sharks are a little more aggressive than the bigger sharks. You can usually read kind of like what the larger shark is.
I've actually,
thinking for the
Jacob,
most
we
part.
don't want to spend too much time on this, but I've never found any shark to be aggressive when I'm scuba diving, and I've been diving for most of my life, thousands of dives, and I've never seen an aggressive shark. The only time I've ever seen any issues is when I'm diving with people who are trailing a line. They are spearfishers and they are carrying a bunch of bloody fish with them. And a fish, a shark will instinctively want to take their fish away from them. I've never ever seen an aggressive shark, and I intentionally seek out the opportunity to dive with sharks. I call sharks the pit bulls of the ocean. They're actually really sweet and curious and misunderstood creatures. So don't spend too much time on that. So, and don't think that everything that you've heard as a threat is actually a threat.
Yeah, most are not, but where's my mouse? The biggest threat is the ego. This gets a lot of divers. They'll think that they're, a single tank, one regulator by themselves, 14 hours, and assume that they can go cave diving. Cave diving it's not beginner friendly at all. You should not go near a cave sign. If you see the cave sign, you've probably gone too far. Don't let your ego cloud your judgment. Get the training for the type of diving you want to do. So if you're doing open water, you dive open water, caverns. Cavern is kind of an intro to cave. Oops.
And I actually think you're ending here, and I think Bill is taking over, I believe, at this point.
Is it on a module or?
No, it's halfway through the module. Bill, are you with us?
Yes, I am with you, and you're correct.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jacob. Pretty good first try. I got some notes in the comment section for you. Okay.
Yep, fantastic work. Hi, everybody. This is Bill. Welcome back. We're gonna dive right in, if you don't mind me doing a dive joke. All right. So responses to increased stress. So your heart rate may increase, your respiration will
Share
increase.
your screen.
Yes, I need to share my screen. All right, there we go. You'll have perceptual narrowing. There's a big danger of failure to excel if the problem is not solved. So which of these two divers would you guess is the stress diver? Who wants to take a stab at that?
Andrea has her hand up.
Left.
Okay.
Or,
That's right.
yeah, my left.
You can see they're blowing out a lot more air, right? So you can tell they're they're the stress diver in this case. And it's rarely just one problem. Usually it's a lot of smaller problems that if not solved, that can lead to a bigger problem that could overwhelm you. And then panic can set in. So panic is the point when all logic and mental control is lost and only flight or fight remains. In diving, panic is not an option. So in prevention, you want to plan your dive and dive your plan. You always have the responsibility to yourself, your buddy, other divers, and the non-diving public. Fitness to dive. So diving requires physical and emotional fitness to dive. Are you physically fit? Are you there and ready to check into the dive? So we believe diving is 40% physical and 60% mental. So when all else fails, you want to stop, breathe, think, breathe, and react. So stop what you're doing, take a full breath cycle, think about what you need to do, take another breath, then take action by reacting to the stressor. So the reaction, solve it underwater if possible, solve it on the surface if possible, abort or cancel the dive if necessary, and divers should respect each other's decisions. And it's much easier than doing a rescue. So the panic cycle. So the problem begins to occur. That's where it starts at. The stress increases. So the diver that's in control, the stress is recognized, stops, breathes, thinks, breathes and reacts, and solves the problem. Okay, the diver without control, perceptual narrowing, skills changes, and even more stress. Even more stress leads to panic. And then you have your flight or fight response.
And that arrow up is what happens when people are panicked and they're a diver, is they bolt to the surface, which is absolutely the worst thing you can do.
Yes, that is. So sometimes if you dive in, you might feel starved for air. If you do come across that situation where you do feel starved for air, stop swimming, slow down your breaths, signal your buddy, ascend to shallower water. And any one of those things could help you feel better about that. Solving a leg cramp. You want to take a nice slow pace. You want to stretch your leg at the first sign. You grasp the tip of your fin and give it a nice pull. You can stretch your own leg like that. We'll be going over some of that in the pool session. And use buddy assistance. So managing physical problems like entanglement, self-assistance, buddy assistance, streamlining, you move through the water easier too. So if loss of buoyancy, the weight system comes off. So if you lose your buoyancy and you're not able to go up, you want to drop your weights. You could dump air from your BC. You want to flare during your ascent to slow that. You want to keep breathing. If the power inflator hose sticks open, hold the vent button, disconnect the hose. If the inflator doesn't work, you can always orally inflate and drop the weights as the last resort. So out of air emergencies. So have you checked your gauge lately? So you haven't, and you find that you're down to 150 pounds. So that's not a very good situation to find yourself in. So we look at octopus breathing here. You have dependent and independent octopus breathing. The dependent includes buddy breathing and a backup scuba unit. Independent might include emergency swim and ascent, positive buoyant ascent. The location of octopus regulator. There are a couple of different places that you could put it, like Ximena said earlier. We use a neck ring that you can put it around your neck. That way it's really easy to get to, and we'll be showing you more about that in the pool session. Okay, you see it here too low. It might not be easily accessible. And if you want to get to it, you're gonna want to know where it's at. So out of air octopus use. So diver signals low on air, then out of air. The buddy offers a primary regulator and then picks up the octopus. So out of air emergencies continue, the octopus breath, and then they do a controlled descent, holding their hand up, going in a circle, checking for things above them while they ascend. So out of air buddy breathing. One diver's out of air. This is the second way to do it, and then you actually have to share air. So you go back and forth. Typically, it's about 2 breaths each, and then you switch to the other diver, do 2 breaths, and then switch back and do 2 breaths. And you always want to exhale. When the regulator's out of your mouth, just a slow stream of bubbles. So out of air emergency independent. So this is you're by yourself. So the air is out and the buddy's too far away. Begin an emergency swim and ascent, and exhale continuously, and continue breathing attempts. As you go up, some of the air that's left in your cylinder will expand out, and you may still be able to breathe some of that in. Okay, out of air emergencies. If all else has failed, see here that something's going terribly wrong. What you could do is a positive buoyant descent, where you add air to your BC and go up using your buoyancy. So which would you choose? I guess you would probably choose not to have to do any of them, but you could have to choose one day, and it would probably depend more on the situation than anything else. Yep, you can see the deeper you dive, the faster you use air. Does anybody know why that is? It's because the air is compressed inside your cylinder, and when you breathe in that air, you're using it faster than you normally would at the surface where it's not compressed. All right, and out of air emergencies, you don't want to have one to begin with, so you want to make sure that you're back on the deck with at least 500 psi, and that usually means turning your dive around at around 1,000 or 1,500 psi to get back on the boat with 500 psi left. And it's time to go up. So managing emergencies is where I'll turn it over to Victor.
Thank you, Bill. Victor, are you with us?
Yes, just give me a second. I'm
Sure,
trying to share here. All right, so before I start, I want everyone to stand up just a second from your seat. Stand up. I want everybody to stand up and just do some stretching. I know it's late, it's been a long day. I mean, we're all tired, so just stretch your legs a little bit. Make sure you get ready for Victor.
I think we needed that, Victor. Thank you.
Yeah, good job, guys. Awesome. Awesome. So yes, we're almost done with this chapter, and then with this module, and then we're gonna go into a very important module, which is dive planning. Okay, so to wrap up with this module, we're gonna how do we recognize serious injuries? Most of these injuries are basically related to pressure injuries, which are called decompression illness. And decompression illness includes decompression sickness, which is normally referred as bends, because people tend to bend their body because of the pain, and embolism. which is when the lung, you have some rupture in your lung for overexpansion, and then part of that air or the gas goes into your bloodstream to your brain, and then you have an embolism, right? Some of the signs and symptoms is, of course, you start to feel very ill. You're going to have joint pains, visual props, cold, choked. Progressively, you're going to feel worse and worse. In some cases, work cases, you can get a little bit unconscious or a little bit unconscious now. You are unconscious or not. Unconsciousness, you're going to have problems breathing, and also in really difficult cases, you will have loss of sight, bloody froth, and even heart stop. So it's very important to recognize these symptoms, and that's why it's so important to follow the ABC rules. Never hold your breath during ascent, and dive your plans. Plan your dive and dive your plan, because we don't want to get into this category of accidents. Okay. We also can be injured by marine life. We all know that, you know, jellyfishes can sting us, or if we are diving not paying attention to the corals, we can get cuts. Or if we are dragging along the bottom, we can get abrasions, or if there's a sea urchin, we can get punctures. So these are different injuries that that we don't want to suffer. So, but anyhow, if any of this happens, the first thing you need to do is to you know, make sure that the scene is safe. Do the ABCs of basic life support is just to make sure that the person is breathing, that the heart is beating, okay, and that the person is unconscious, okay. You need to remain calm and reassure to the person to remember what you need to do. In some cases, you will have to use hot water to treat, or vinegar to treat some of these stings or abrasions or cuts. And of course, you need to get involved into medical assistance. If you are trained to do first aids, do that. And if not, you better call, you know, for medical assistance, call 911. And once the EMS is in the location, they will take care of that. So when you call for help, first you need to recognize if it's really needed, that help from, you know, medical professionals. The rescue, if there is a problem, you start with the rescue, and then you begin the first aids. If you are trained to do that. And then when the medical help arrive, they will take the person to the trauma center. To do that, of course, you call 911. If you use your cell phone, you usually stay online, and you will provide the full location and the description of the person, age, what happened, how did it happen, how deep, and, you know, all the information that you can provide. When we go diving, in this case, you're diving under Gabrielle's. She has the DANS, which stands for Divers Alert Network Insurance. And if you call to this number, you will all be insured by this under her insurance. So you can call to this number, and they can provide you advice of how to proceed in a specific diving incident. Okay, so to avoid any of this, most of the time what we do is we want to plan or dive. Of course, we need to take into consideration different factors. Health that you have, how is the climate, do we need to travel or not, how is the weather going to look like during our you know, when we go diving. And also, you know, you need to take into consideration your own conditions. Are you rested, nourished? Are you qualified? Are you going to do a night dive? Are you qualified to do a night dive? Are you qualified to do a deep dive? So you need to be apprehensive and make sure you take into consideration all this. And then the advanced planning is why I'm doing this, who is coming with me, where am I going, when, at what time of the day, how I'm going to be transported to that location and back, So all these things are elements that you need to think about when you're preparing for your dive. And then on the other side, you need to make sure your gear, your equipment is working right, and that you have the right body with you, and you go through all the body system that you already heard about during this presentation. And then on side, you again, before starting the dive, you need to take into consideration weather and other conditions, the dive profile, just to make sure that you are safe. Diving is a really beautiful sport, but safety always goes first, okay? So this is quite important. In our next module, we're gonna be learning the use of dive tables. So if you have your dive table handy, just have it there, because I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions. Does everyone have your dive tables with you? If not, I want, show me your dive tables. I want to see.
We have a
that.
brand new student, Victor, who just signed up today, so he definitely does not have his dive tables. But
Okay, we're
other people
gonna
probably do. So yeah, everyone else should.
awesome, guys. So this is an example of the dive table that you have for the new student that you're gonna have soon when you get your packet. Okay, so this table have three parts. So we have table A, which is the one on the top right, and that is for single dive. So it's very simple. Here to our left, we have different columns. Those are the depth. And then to our right, we have everything in this table is minutes, is time, okay? So anything that we read here is minutes. So for example, if we're gonna do a dive to 50 feet for 28 minutes, then we're in the safe zone. Here, the black area at the end of the dive table of each depth is just what is called the no decompression limit. So the last number here is our limit to dive to that specific depth, okay? Then under that one, we have table B. Table B is the surface credit. So once you finish your first dive, you're gonna do a second dive later. Then this table shows you also a range of time that you're gonna spend at the surface. That time is very important because as you stay at the surface, your body is gonna be degassing that extra nitrogen that has been absorbed by our tissue. Do you remember which law rules that? We already talked about this law earlier during the lecture. So there is a law that says that as you dive, your body will absorb some gases, okay? Which law is that? Remember the soda bottle? Yeah.
Come on, guys, the old man sitting on the front porch. We need your interactivity here.
Yeah, so that's
Wait,
Mr.
someone needs to guess this.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. I almost
I
recognized.
know you did. Somebody.
Is that one Henry's Law?
Yay, Lauren.
Yes. Perfect. Yes. So that's Henry's law. So Henry's law, what says is that as we dive with the pressure, our body is going to be absorbing, especially in the case that we dive, is nitrogen. So our body's going to be, our tissues are going to start to building up the levels of nitrogen. And that's what is called ingassing. So we're absorbing the gas. And as we surface and we stay at the surface, our body outgas. So we're releasing again that extra gas that has been absorbed slowly. Okay, so table B, which is the surface credit, is the time that we're going to spend on the surface. And if you see here between table A and table B, we have all these letters. These are alphabetically ordered letters. And this is what is called our dive group, okay? Or repetitive group also. Okay, so as we move from A and up, it means that you have absorb more nitrogen. Okay, so a diver C has more nitrogen absorbed in their body than a diver A, but a diver H have even more nitrogen than a diver C. Okay, so as you move along these alphabetical letters, it means that you have been absorbing more and more and more and more nitrogen in your body. Okay, basically that's what it means. So as we stay at the surface here in table B, the reading is going to be from the bottom up. Okay, so for example, let's see here if we are a diver F, and we the lowest time that we can be at the surface is 10 minutes. Again, all the numbers in this table is numbers, is minutes, sorry, it's minutes. Okay, so here we see 10 minutes to 52 minutes, and then 53 minutes to 1 hour and 44 minutes, 1 hour 45 minutes to 2 hours and 33 minutes. Okay, so that's a range of time. So if we stay at the surface for 1 hour, we're going to be in this second block. Okay, so we move from an F diver to an E diver. That means that our body released some of this nitrogen, and now we still have some nitrogen, but less than we have when we exit our first dive. Okay, now table C is where things can get a little bit confusing at the beginning, and that is what we are going to use for our next dive. So when we're going into our second or third or fourth dive, we're going to go through this table, because this table, is going to show us the also all the numbers here are minutes, but we have two numbers, right? The number at the top is what is called the residual nitrogen time. And the number at the bottom is the actual bottom time. That's the maximum time that we'll be able to dive to that depth in our next dive. I'm going to explain that in more detail in the next module, but this is kind of important. Another important thing to take into consideration is bottom time, the definition of bottom time. And this is a question for your exam, okay? So bottom time starts as we start our dive at the surface, okay? So here start our bottom time. We're gonna start our descent. We reach our bottom or depth, right? We're gonna stay at that depth and do our dive, and then we start at ascend, and then our bottom time ends right here and a safety stop. So this other level here is the 3-minute safety stop that we do. Okay, that's why it looks like this. So the bottom time starts here at the surface. We go all the way, descend, we stay at the bottom, and then we ascend. And when we start, our safety stop is when our bottom time ends. Really important to know the difference of what bottom time is. Good. And then I want you to check in your table A, in your air tables. How long can I stay at 50 feet? So you're going to look into the left columns, 50 feet, and then we're going to move all the way to the right. And the last number that's the maximum time I can spend at 50 feet. So how long can I stay? When you find it, unmute yourself and just let me know.
80
What's that? How's that?
80.
80 minutes. Yeah, so that's right. Table A, we go 50 feet, we go all the way to the end, and we find 80 minutes. Very good. Now, if we go to 80 feet, how long can I stay there? So do the same thing, look for 80 feet, and then go all the way to the end. And what number you have there? That's minutes.
32 minutes.
32 minutes. Very good. And now, what if we go to 100 feet? How long can I stay there, 100 feet? This is the easy one.
18 minutes.
Very good. So we can only stay there for 18 minutes. So if we see here, the deeper we go, the shorter the time we can be at depth. Okay, and this is because our body is taking all this extra nitrogen that if we ascend, we can have an accident. So that is why it's very important to plan your dive, to know what depth I'm going and how long can I stay there safely to do no decompression dives. So what is decompression theory? All this is handled by decompression theory. I was telling you, our body's being absorbing the gas and then outgassing that excess of nitrogen. So basically what we're gonna do is if we start here at the left, right? Imagine that this is our body. The blue block is our body, okay? We start our dive, and as we start our dive, this blue color represents the level of nitrogen in your body. So it starts to build up. As we finish our dive, that level of nitrogen increase a little bit even more. Then when we go to the surface, we have completed, you know, our body has accumulated X amount of nitrogen. We stay at the surface for our next dive. Our body is being degassing that excess of nitrogen, but we'll still have some nitrogen in our body. Okay, so when we do our second dive, we need to take into consideration that excess of nitrogen. And in the previous slide, when I mentioned the RNT, or residual nitrogen time, is this. It just imagine that this is like, it means like this is time that you're ready dive for your second dive. Another way I like to put it, imagine this is like your bank account, okay? So your bottom time is your deposit. But then for your second dive is your second deposit, but from your first dive, you have some interest. So you have to, when you fill your slip, you have to put the real amount that you're depositing plus that that money, that extra interest that your money gained. So and that's going to be your total bottom time. We're going to talk more about that in the next module a little bit. So when we go to second dive, our nitrogen still builds up a little bit more, and we don't want to excess the limits of nitrogen that our body can absorb, because then we can have an accident, decompression sickness. Okay. And that's why we take into consideration the residual nitrogen time, and we want to make sure not to excess those times. Good. Once we learn about this, it's going to be easy. We're just going to go out there and do our dive. As we plan our dives, we're going to have a lot of fun. So as a resume of the module 4, we talk about diving, some of the diving skills, you know, the water entries, how you enter if you are from this in a surf zone, or if you are on a boat, how to manage some physiological problems and the excess of stress, some physical problems, and how to manage some of the emergencies and the basics of dive tables. Do you have any question to this point? Is there anything you would like to comment, or any question, any doubt that you have? No? Okay, so I'm gonna move on because this part is important. I don't know if we're gonna complete it today, but let's try to move as we can, okay? So this module is dive planning and safety. And it's basically, we're gonna talk only about the dive table. I already introduced you to the decompression theory and part of the dive table. So we're gonna, we want to plan or dive for always to stay in no decompression limits. You're getting certified as an open water divers, and is mandatory. You're being trained to be as recreational divers between the non-decompression limits. Okay, it means that we're not gonna plan any stop for decompressions. Okay, decompression stops. This way we reduce the risk for decompression sickness. And then of course we manage nitrogen saturation, and we do this through dive tables, but also in the future, when you become more advanced diver, if you start using dive computers will help you to do that. But for now, we're gonna be using SEI air tables. Different agencies will have different tables as well. Now PADI, SSI, all these agencies, they have their own air tables, but they're different from SEI tables. Okay, they use different mathematical models in order to calculate all these limits. So for us, it's mandatory to use SEI tables, and they're not interchangeable. It means that you cannot plan one dive on SEI table and then do your second dive on a PADI table or a NAUI table. Okay, you always stay with one of these, and for our class, SEI tables is the one that we're going to use. Okay, good. It's very important to have clear some of these definitions, and most of this that I'm going to talk about now are test questions. So this is very important for you to have very clear. Now, I already mentioned, what is bottom time? It starts at the surface and ends when we begin our safety stop. Okay, that's bottom time. That's a very important term. The second, required decompression diving is because you go too deep and you stay too long. On the first exercise, I asked you how long can you stay at 50 feet, how long can you stay at 80 feet, how long can you stay at 100 feet. And as we go deeper, then it was the time that we could stay there with no decompression was shorter. So if we go too deep and we stay there longer than those times, that is when we will require decompression, and we're not planning for that. So recreational diving is non-required stop, decompression stop diving. SEI diving limits are, as we mentioned, for 50 feet, 80 minutes, for 50 feet, 80 minutes, for 80 feet, 32 minutes, and for 100 feet, 18 minutes. As your tables, you already saw that in the tables, okay? If in with between, go to the next greater time or depth. And this is very, very, very important. What this means is, for example, look in your table, if you are going to 47 feet, is there a 47 feet in your column or in your, in your row? No, there is no 47. So what this means, if you're actually diving 47 feet, you have to go to the greatest depth. In this case, you're going to plan for 50 feet. And what if you, at 50 feet, you are diving, let's say, 22 minutes? Is there 22 minutes in the table? No. So in that case, you move to the following greater one, which is how many minutes can you stay? How?
28.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the table with me here. I have it in digital, so I need to just escape a second just to double check. So we are to 50 feet. 22 minutes, then we go to 28. Yes, that's correct. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to go back and forth. Good. So that's what it means. Always go to the greatest. Sometimes, for example, if you are diving to 71 feet, to which depth are you planning? Look at your tables. If I said your next dive is to 71 feet, then to what depth are you really planning your dive?
80.
To 80, yes, perfect. Yeah, 70 is right there. It's very close, but you have to always go to the greatest one, okay? So in this case, you go to 80 and you plan your dive as you're diving 80 feet. Very good. Okay, the ascent rate is also very important. So it is no faster than 30 feet per minute. If we have a line from the surface to the bottom, that means that our ascent rate is going to be hand over hand ascending through that rope. Okay, so that slow is our ascent. Okay, and this is also very important. Remember, especially when we're finishing our dive, or the last 33 feet is when the volume in your lungs can expand double in a very short distance. So we want to make sure we are ascending on the right rates. Okay, not more than 30 feet per minute. This is a question for your exam. For high altitude diving, reduce your times and depths. Most of the time we're gonna be diving around here, so no problem with this. And what if we need to fly after diving? So also in your dive tables, you can have more information about that, but the recommendation is between 12 to 24 hours after, especially if you do repetitive dive in consecutive days. It's better to wait at least between 12 to 24 hours before you fly, because you're going to be exposed to decompression, and then some of that extra nitrogen in your body can, you know, degas, and you can have decompression accident. Okay, so RNT is the residual nitrogen time, or depth time is time against the next dive. Is what I said, is what I explained, that this is the interest rate that I have to add to my second dive bottom time. So my second bottom time is my deposit amount, is the cash that I'm putting. I really have that, but then I have to add that residual nitrogen time is the interest that I'm and I have to add those two numbers. And the total dive time is what I just said. So it's the residual nitrogen time plus the next dive bottom time. And the safety stop should end all dive for 3 minutes at 50 feet. This is every dive you do, always do your safety stop. So what is the signal for a safety stop, 3 minute safety stop? What's the signal, the hand signal for safety stop? Let me see it. I don't see you guys. What's your hand signal for? Okay, so 3 minutes. Some people will do it like this. All they will do 3 minutes at this step. Okay, so that's really, really important. Okay, good. And repetitive dive accounts for previous dive that day. So if you dive multiple times within 24 hours, that is what is called repetitive dive. Okay, maybe you start one dive at 9 p.m. and then your next dive was 2 a.m. Those are repetitive dive because you dive within 24 hours. And it's very important for all of you to check the page 15 in your classroom notes workbook, because all this information is there. It's very important that you review all this information before taking the test, because these are all test questions. Okay, so now let's start using the dive tables. As I mentioned, table A is for a single dive. So if you're only diving one time, you don't need to worry. As long as you stay within the bottom time, no decompression limits, you're good to go, all right? Then table B is the surface interval. In between those two tables, we have the dive repetitive group, which are those letters A to L, M, I think, M. And then we have table C, which is the residual nitrogen time and next dive time. see what happened here. All right. And then if you turn your dive table and you look the back side of your dive table, we have the table D, which is for dummies, right? So that's the decompression diving. We're not planning for decompression, but what if we maybe didn't check our deep or depth, or we were not paying attention to our bottom time and we exceed or not the compression limit? Then we have table D, which will help us make the right decision for our decompression stops, usually at 20 feet, and that will tell us what depth, how long we should stay at 20 feet, depending on the time and the depth that we were. But we're gonna check that later. All right, so let's imagine this problem. We are going to go to 60 feet for, I think is 40 minutes. So this is the way we're gonna follow up, okay? We look on our column, 60 feet, and then we go right, and we say, well, 40 minutes, there is no 40, I move to the greater one, all right? So 40 feet, 45 minutes. That makes us a repetitive group. We're gonna exit that first dive as a repetitive group H. That's the amount of nitrogen that we have. We are H, all right? Then we're gonna stay in the surface for 1 hour. All right, so we follow that H down until we find the 1 hour. So 1 hour is within between 53 minutes and 1 hour and 44. So 1 hour is here. That makes us a G diver. So when we enter our second dive, we're gonna enter a second dive as a G diver. Our first dive, of course, we are A diver. Every time you start your first dive, you're always going to be an A diver, all right? You have no nitrogen at all in your body. So we enter our second dive as a G diver. Our second dive is going to be to 50 feet. So if we follow that G repetitive groove, okay, to our left, and we cross that with the 50 feet on the top. So all the numbers here at the top of table C is depth, okay? So this is a 35 feet, that, and then the number below is in meters, okay? So 50 feet here in the top, and then we cross with G, and we have these two numbers. 49 is our residual nitrogen time. That's the amount, the time that we have to assume our next dive, we already dived that time. And the number at the bottom, 31, is the maximum time, bottom time that I can spend at 50 feet, okay? So just to explain this differently, if we go to 50 feet, in the first dive, we can stay at 50 feet for 80 minutes, okay? But because I already dived first time, we have a penalty of 49 minutes. That means that 80 minus 49, that's 31. And that's why I can only stay there 31 minutes. If we add these two numbers, 49 plus 31, that's going to be 80, which is their maximum no decompression time. All right? Any question? If you have a question, please unmute yourself and say, hey, Victor, this is Chinese. I don't understand a thing. If not, we're going to continue with the exercises. It's going to be easier to understand. All right, so this is our profile for that same example. So we're going to start our first dive, right? We're going to go to 60 feet for 40 minutes. We came up our first dive as an H diver. We had our surface interval for 1 hour, and then we went to 50 feet. How long can I stay at 50 feet on my second dive to do a safe dive? So we went through the dive table as I just present, and the number was, can you recall that again?
49,
No,
31.
31 minutes.
31 minutes, yes. 31 minutes. So we enter second dive as a G diver, or residual nitrogen time is 49. That's not 40, it's 49. There's a mistake here. So we have our maximum no decompression time for a second dive is going to be 31 minutes. Most of the exam questions are going to ask you these kind of questions. You have to find the maximum bottom time that I can be in a second dive, changing all these parameters, okay? So, and that's what I was explaining. The maximum no decompression time at 50 feet is 80 minutes. That's what this 80 minutes means. And then our 49 is our residual nitrogen time. And if we deduct those two, that's the 31 minutes that is also on table C that you found, okay? Now let's try to do another exercise. Okay, so before we go there, this is the way you're gonna see during the test, and is a good way to practice draw these profiles. So you make sure you have all the information you need, which is the bottom time, RNT is the residual nitrogen time. ABT stands for the actual bottom time. That's the time that you're planning to dive. I'm planning my first dive to dive 20 minutes, and my second dive is going to be 20 minutes. My third dive, 20 minutes, for example. It's just an example, okay? So a first dive, we don't have residual nitrogen time, but a second dive, we will have a number here, and we have to add our residual nitrogen time plus our actual bottom time, and then we will have our total bottom time, okay? And the same for a third dive if we have 2, 3, or 4 consecutive dives. Now, I want all of you to check on your dive tables, and this is the profile. So we're going to 70 feet for 20 minutes. And we're gonna have a 30 minutes surface interval after a first dive. And then we're going to our second dive to 50 feet. How long can I stay there? What's our maximum bottom time at 50 feet for a second dive?
45.
45.
Wow. Are you sure? I remember when I was in school, when my professor asked, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Why you ask me that? I think I'm sure." I hated it. Okay, so let's go through the dive table. Let's find 70 feet, okay? And we go to 20 minutes. So we have 20 minutes. In 70 feet, do we have 20 to our right?
No,
No, so what's the greater?
23.
23 minutes, very good. So when we go down, which letter are we? A repetitive groove.
E.
E, very good. Okay, so we continue down E, right? We're at E, we continue down and we look for 30 minutes. Where is 30 minutes? It must be maybe I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the last one at the bottom, right?
Hmm?
So we enter our second dive as a what repetitive group?
E.
As a group E, very good. And now we move left to our table C, and then at the top, we try to get 50 feet and we cross 50 feet and E. And we are gonna have two numbers there. The top number is the RNT, residual nitrogen time, and the bottom number is the answer to this question. So what number we have there?
45.
45.
Good. So our residual nitrogen time is going to be 35 minutes. And our bottom time is going to be 45 minutes. Very good, guys. Very, very good. Does anyone have a question about how we found 45 minutes? Now is the time to ask. All right. Let's move on to our next dive. So this is another problem. We're going to 80 feet for 30 minutes, and then we're going to have a 2 hours surface interval. And then in our second dive, we're going to 70 feet. How long can I stay there? What's my maximum bottom time at 70 feet?
13.
Does everybody agrees on that? Let's give it 1 minute to the others to check on that.
13.
Yeah, remember we need to have all the information for a profile. So we need to know what repetitive group we exit, what repetitive group we enter, or residual nitrogen time. Okay. So what group are we? Oh, wait. What group are we when we exit our first dive? If we go to 80 feet for 30 minutes, when we exit, which letter, repetitive group letter are we?
H.
H.
H. Okay. After 2 hours, what repetitive group are we now?
F.
F. Very good. So, and then we go to 70 feet and we cross F and 70. We have two numbers. The one in the top is our RNT. What is our RNT?
It's 29.
29. And then the number at the bottom is the answer to this question. What is our maximum bottom time for a second dive?
13 minutes.
13 minutes. Very good, guys. Very, very good. Does everyone get that? Till here is easy, okay? Very easy. Let's do another exercise. So we're going to 71 feet for 20 minutes. And then we're gonna have a 2 hours and 30 minutes surface interval. And then our second dive is gonna be to 38 feet. How long, what is our maximum bottom time for a second dive?
106.
106.
Okay, let's wait when everybody agrees. Okay, so when we go to 71 minutes for 71 feet for 20 minutes, what is our exit group?
E.
E? Okay, we're gonna be E divers. Do we have 71 feet in our table A? Do we have 71?
No.
No, so we go to where?
80.
To 80 feet, very good. So this one is like we're going to 80 feet for 20 minutes. That make us an E diver, all right? And then after 2 hours and 30 minutes, what diver are we for a second dive?
C.
C diver, very good. So we go our second dive to 38 feet. Do we have 38 feet? No, right? So we go to where?
40.
To 40 feet. Okay, so we're 40 feet and C. which two numbers we have. We have the RNT on top, which is RNT, which is going to be your RNT, residual nitrogen time.
29.
29. And or on the bottom number is our maximum bottom time, which is
106.
106. Okay, yeah. So here we are. Very good, guys. Very, very good. Does anyone has any question? Gabrielle, you want to do another one, or how do you want to proceed?
Normally we would continue, but I think they're tired. I think we'll stop here if that's okay, unless I'm reading people's body language wrong. Would you like to continue for 5 more minutes, or you want to call it a day? What does everyone want? All right, hearing no response, I'm going to say let's end it here.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah,
we'll pick up we'll pick up next time. So thank you all for being here. Any questions? Andrea, you have a question?
No, I have a
You're
cat.
stretching. Oh, it's a cat.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Yes, I have, I don't know if you saw the activity here, but I have a bunch of foster kittens that are
Yeah.
they're heading to the adoption booth at PetSmart tomorrow.
Oh,
So, 3 of them are anyway. So anyone have questions? We have quite a bit of time now before the next lecture. So please try to read the book. For those in the accelerated that are leaving the country, I'll be following up hopefully tonight, but no later than tomorrow with some additional information to get you certified early. Okay. And we've got a lot of diving coming up. So leadership team, thank you for being here. Thank you for teaching. Have a great week, the rest of your week. And I look forward to blowing bubbles with you soon. Any questions before I hang up? All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
good night, everyone. Practice your dive tables.
Yes.
Bye.
Homework.
thank you all.
Bye.